Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
Namaste, friends. Today we are talking about Palantir, Epstein, and the Dark Enlightenment. So we're delving into a subject that connects at least three of the things we've been exploring on the podcast in recent weeks: the Epstein files, Gaza, the Board of Peace, and Trump's dystopian vision of the future of Gaza, and apocalyptic theology and Armageddon. All these themes connect in the topic of Palantir and its co-founder, Peter Theil. What is Palantir? Well, according to Google, Palantir Technologies is a US-based software company specializing in data integration, analytics, and AI-driven decision-making platforms for government agencies, military, and large commercial enterprises. Founded in 2003, it builds software, namely Gotham, Foundry, and AIP, that connects fragmented datasets to help analysts detect patterns and optimize operations. We'll cycle back around and explain more about Palantir later, but first, let's look at Palantir's co-founder, Peter Theil. So how is Peter Theil connected to the Epstein files? According to Byline Times, Epstein was described by former Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister Ehud Barak as an owner of a Silicon Valley venture fund controlled by Peter Theil. This apparently may not have been exactly right. However, at the very least, he was a limited partner. And Byline Times has seen the documents that reveal the depth and duration of Peter Thiel's personal business relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It was a partnership that continued years after Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. So any suggestion that Peter Theil was not close to Epstein is totally contradicted by these documents. Until the release of the Epstein files, says Byline Times, little was known about Epstein's investment in this major fund founded and chaired by Theil. The documents show that Epstein quickly but secretly became a major investor in Thiel's fund. Theil solicited funds from Epstein for Vela Ventures, and repeatedly, not just once, over the years. And just a Tolkien theme, the powers of Arda, known as the Valar, are divine beings who entered the world to shape, govern, and protect it. I don't know about protect, but to shape the world in our own image. That is being funded by Vela Ventures. Theil and his firm treated Epstein as an active premium partner in Vela Ventures, and Theil and his associates continued soliciting funds from Epstein right up to his final arrest on federal sex trafficking charges. So Epstein and his money play a big role in the Palantir Peter Theil story. The next thing we want to weave in is the Board of Peace and the dystopian vision of Gaza that we heard being outlined by Trump and by Jared Kushner. This brings us to considering the network state And it is Peter Theil, who is a key figure and financial backer behind the network state movement. And this is a concept focused on creating new decentralized communities and sovereign tech-driven cities that exist alongside or eventually replace traditional nation states. Theil supports the idea of accelerating this transition to bypass government regulations and build these freedom cities. And he's funding startups and organizations that work towards this goal, which includes Praxis and the Seasteading Institute. Friends, if you have not read the Mad Adam trilogy, everyone's been excited about The Handmaid's Tale, but you should also read the Mad Adam trilogy because she has really looked into New New York, because from old New York is completely flooded due to climate change. New New York is part of a world that is governed by a corporation. That's the way it's going. So, more about the network state. Balaji Srinivasan wrote a book, The Network State, How to Start a New Country, and the book outlines a plan for tech plutocrats to exit democracy and establish new sovereign territories. So here's what's been reported by the New Republic. What I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism, Balaji said, after comparing his movement to those started by the biblical Abraham, Jesus Christ, Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, Theodore Herzl, the spiritual father of the State of Israel, and Lee Kuan Yew, the former authoritarian ruler of Singapore. Balaji then revealed his shocking ideas for a tech-governed city where citizens loyal to tech companies would form a new political tribe clad in grey t-shirts. And if you see another grey on the street, you do the nod, he said, during a 4-hour talk on the Moment of Zen podcast. You're a fellow grey. My God. So here's more from Gil Duran, writing in Tech Policy Press. Quote, Trump's Gaza fantasy fuses necropolitics with venture capital. Flatten a place, declare it free, and auction it to the highest bidder. This is the network state in its most ghoulish incarnation. A tech-fascist casino built atop genocide and displacement. Gaza isn't the only site of this tech colonial impulse. The network state's backers have already created a prototype called Prospera, a privately run charter city in Honduras that operates under a separate legal system. And Gil Duran goes on. Many of his ideas, Balaji's ideas, resemble earlier work by Curtis Yarvin, sometimes referred to as Peter Theil's house philosopher, who in 2008 wrote a notorious essay called Patchwork. And Yarvin says, our goal, in short, is a humane alternative to genocide. Take a deep breath. Our goal, in short, is a humane alternative to genocide. He then concluded that the best humane alternative to genocide is to virtualize these people, imprison them in permanent solitary confinement, where, to avoid making them insane, they would be connected to an immersive virtual reality interface so they could experience a rich, fulfilling life in a completely imaginary world. Well, this is possibly slightly better than experiencing a miserable life in a rain-soaked, rat-infested tent in Gaza, but I don't know. Maybe not. So next, how is Peter Theil connected to Armageddon and the Antichrist? Friends, Peter Theil has been lecturing in Rome, close to the Vatican, about his deeply heretical view of apocalyptic theology. Here's Anna Leifkowitz in an opinion piece in MS Now, quoting her. Theil's religious beliefs are a mishmash of his political and personal beliefs about technology, civilization, race, and democracy. And his views on the Antichrist range from the disturbing to the nonsensical. For example, he has said that he believes the Antichrist will push the world towards peace using the fear of war. He also thinks the Antichrist would use peace to slow down or even stop technological advances. He said it's possible that Greta Thunberg and other critics could be, quote, legionnaires of the Antichrist. I'm still quoting Anna Leifkowitz in MS Now. She goes on to say, it's a belief structure built on fear. And Theil's fear appears to be that Western civilization will be crushed by a myriad of people and forces that don't adhere to his interpretation of technocratic Christian beliefs, she says. There are some things a billionaire can't buy. An understanding of theology without rigorous study is one of them. The man who made his fortune with PayPal and is building an even greater fortune by bringing artificial intelligence to government surveillance with Palantir isn't obsessed with the Antichrist in the exorcist sense. His interests are instead an esoteric mashup of teachings from the late French academic René Girard's mimetic theory and Nazi jurist Carl Schmitt, who argued that modern thought is a secular belief rather than a religious complex. So more from the website of the University of Southern California, author Michael Christensen. Quoting Michael, the alternative to the Antichrist system, Theil argues, is Armageddon, the catastrophic collapse of civilization through global warfare and destruction. For him, our world is trapped between two extreme possibilities, annihilation and authoritarianism. The fear of collapse makes societies more willing to embrace authoritarian solutions that promise safety at any cost. The only possible balance, Theil suggests, lies in what the Apostle Paul described in the New Testament's second letter to the Thessalonians as the katechon, a mysterious restraining force that holds back the spirit of the Antichrist. As a theologian, meaning Michael Christensen, as a theologian, I find it significant that Theil turns to one of Paul's most cryptic passages to frame his political imagination. Paul never explains what the restraining force is, leaving it open to interpretation. Theil's reading reveals less about Paul and more about how Silicon Valley elites are reinterpreting apocalyptic language for their own purposes. And this brings us to a topic that we have discussed in an earlier podcast episode, Dark Enlightenment. The Dark Enlightenment, or the neo-reactionary movement, is an anti-democratic, anti-egalitarian reactionary philosophy founded by Curtis Yarvin, the American software engineer and blogger under the pen name Mencius Moldbug, and developed further by English philosopher Nick Land. In 2007 and 2008, Yarvin articulated what would develop into Dark Enlightenment thinking. Yarvin's theories were elaborated and expanded by Land, who first coined the term Dark Enlightenment in his essay of the same name. So now we know who's behind Palantir. We have a little glimpse behind the curtain. Is the tech bros world the one we want to live in? How dangerous is Palantir? So just as Valar is a name from Tolkien, so is Palantir. The Palantiri, sometimes translated as seeing stones, were stones that could be used in communication with one another. And they could see things across the face of the world. When the master of the stone looked in it, they could communicate with other stones and anyone who might be looking into them. And people of great power could manipulate the stones to see virtually any part of the world. And yes, they fall into the hands of Sauron. I kid you not. Scary Palantir. Palantir uses artificial intelligence to weaponize our data against us. Built with CIA funding to support the U.S. war on terror, Palantir is a weapons company disguised as a software startup, as opposed to what we read from Google at the beginning. It helps Israel plan military operations. It powers ICE's deportation machine. It's everywhere you look. It's used by militaries, police forces, banks, hospitals. It's wormed its way into the NHS, your local pharmacy, your favorite fast food place. It is here to help governments track and target individuals. It is killing people abroad and in this country. It can be weaponized against all of us, so we have to stop it. What does it actually do? It vacuums up massive amounts of data collected by governments and corporations. The AI algorithm combines all this data into this gigantic data set and looks for patterns that are hard to see. It might find where someone is after they overstayed their visa. ICE is using Palantir to centralize data. Palantir has your address, your phone number, your driving records, your credit history, your immigration history, your health data, and your social media presence. Palantir's tools have been fueling the ICE raids, and Palantir is also supporting genocide and war. Here we come back to our Gaza theme. The Israeli government began using Palantir software in 2014, but really scaled it up during the Gaza genocide starting in 2023. Palantir CEO Alex Karp has said, "I am proud that we are supporting Israel in every way we can." So yes, Palantir is being used to plan attacks in Lebanon and Gaza. These horrific things that we are experiencing every day, like the incredibly horrific, apocalyptic bombing raid that just was done on the small and beautiful country of Lebanon. Palantir works closely with the U.S. military. The CEO of Palantir says, "Our weapons software is in every combat situation I'm aware of." And Palantir executive Shyam Shankar has said that Palantir's work for the Pentagon is this generation's Manhattan Project. Remember the Manhattan Project that developed the atom bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Well, Palantir was headquartered in Colorado, but sustained pressure from DAWA, Denver Anti-War Action, and allied groups, protests, picketing, campaigns against the company's work with ICE and the IDF forced Palantir Technologies to move from Denver to Miami. This just happened February 2026, guys. We won. Activists targeted the AI firms and companies' role in surveillance and military contracts. So Palantir is involved in family separations, migrant deportations, mass surveillance. In the US and the UK, digital spy agencies, NSA and the GCHQ. It was one of the systems exposed by Edward Snowden for tracking millions of innocent people's movements online. Racist policing in the US. Many US police forces use Palantir for predictive policing, which unfairly targets poor and black communities. In LA, the police used Palantir to build a tool, laser, to extract suspected offenders from the community like a tumor. Palantir was used for secret operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. It powered the intelligence for the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And here comes Epstein again. Peter Mandelson, just disgraced because of his ties to Epstein, had strong links to Palantir. He founded a political lobbying firm, Global Counsel, and that was hired by Palantir in 2018 to help procure UK government contracts, while Epstein and Peter Theil were still linked. Mandelson did stop his involvement of Global Counsel when he was appointed as the UK ambassador to the US, but he still held shares in the firm. So by this point, Palantir had already secured the £330 million contract with the NHS. And the company now holds over £670 million worth of contracts with the UA government. And the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, visited the US headquarters of Palantir in early 2025 as part of an official visit to the White House. And that meeting was facilitated by Mandelson. And at the time, Palantir was still a client of Global Counsel. Whew. So, we have seen, because of the success, the very recent amazing success of Dower, that we can do something about Palantir. Conversation in the car last night on the way to a pro-Palestine anti-ICE action in Aurora outside Geo. What can I do when I'm just one little person? To which I replied, but the entire world is made up of people. We can do something. So join Purge Palantir. Plan an action as part of the Purge Palantir campaign. Once you get on that website, you can see a map that shows the main contracts and stakeholders of Palantir. Call for your local university, your politicians, hospitals, utility companies, and pension funds to cut all ties to Palantir. Target the corporate offices, the hospitals and healthcare systems that use Palantir, utility companies, elected officials who receive donations from Palantir executives. You can check out another link. I'll put the links in the notes. Check out Palantir Payroll. Investors. Get on the case of investors in Palantir and college campus recruitments, events, and contracts. So there are things we can do, and you may be just one little person. And there's this giant surveillance company working towards these nefarious ends, the ends of Sauron. But we can succeed. We can overcome.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivadanam urvarukamiva pandanam mrityormukshi